Hi everyone and welcome along. I'm sorry you don't get to see my lovely face today, but we are filming on a schedule that means we're going to get straight down to action today. So I'm going to paint a lovely little lighthouse because we were on holiday a bit recently and we saw this beautiful lighthouse in Portland, a lighthouse called Portland Bill, and it was really striking. So I have drawn a little rectangle, a three-sided rectangle with no top, and then I just used my compass to create that curve on the top of the rectangle. For those of you wondering the size, let's see, it's 6 centimeters across, and I drew upwards about 7.5 centimeters before putting the curve in. So now I'm just going to draw a little sort of horizon line, and we're going to put our lighthouse just to one side, so you could sort of draw yourself a very faint vertical line, and then from either side a bit of a tapered line just coming out the side, and then I'm going to just pop in as a little bit of a building next to it. And then we've got some sort of craggy cliffs and rocks. And then at the top we've got a bit of a sort of detailed curve there, and then the light itself, so that bit goes straight up and then it's got a little hat on, and a little curve on the top. So I'm going to begin by painting in the sky. It was a very atmospheric sky the day we went to the lighthouse, so I'm going to use a combination of the blues in my palette. I've got French ultramarine here, and then Prussian blue there, and then also we'll get a bit of shadow in there with Paynes Grey and burnt sienna mixed in together. So I've got my size 2 brush, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin by painting right up to the edge of that rectangular area, or the curve, and I'm just trying to use a real amount of water to just begin this kind of wash, and we want to get in a bit of unpainted space to feature some clouds, and we also want to make sure that we don't paint in on the lighthouse as well. So what I'm doing here is I'm sort of creating some unpainted space, there we go, that cloud that sort of features in right behind the lighthouse there, and then I think we'll get another one. And then maybe a little bit more of a slightly deeper sky. So you can now see some cloudy areas that we've established just by painting in some blue skies overhead. And they look a little bit sort of blocky at the moment, and that's fine. We've got another stage to go with those. Coming down here, I'm just going to sort of fade it out to nothing because we need to place in the sea. So I'm now going to use the smaller brush. I'm going to get a size 0, and I'm now going to take some of this shadow and just place it in on the lower half of some of these clouds, and it will sort of gently blend in just a little bit. It just helps shape your clouds a bit more. And make your sky a little bit more realistic and atmospheric. And just really try to stay within the confines of the curve you've created. And that's great, we've created a really atmospheric sea. So we just need to let that dry and then we can paint in the rest. Now we're going to paint in the land, and Portland is famous for Portland stone. So I'm going to paint in a combination of yellow ochre with just a little bit of some of the shadow mix painted in, and just by leaving bits of unpainted space we're going to create a lovely sort of gnarly landscape, and these cliff edges just here and here are where the stone is really going to come into its own. I love painting these little vignettes. They're perfect for anyone who feels like a full landscape painting is just a bit daunting. I've for a long time sort of shied away from landscape painting. I do a lot of it now, but for a while I just didn't know where to begin, and I think sometimes if you want to have a go at it, but it feels a bit overwhelming, try just picking a key spot from a photo you've taken, or if you're in situ somewhere and you're sat there, take a little snapshot of a framing, and then you will be able to just focus in on the bit you want to try, and it'll be a bit more digestible, I suppose. Now I'm just mixing up some sap green with some green gold to capture the grass in and amongst the rocky hill landscape. I'm just going to bring it up a little bit so it interacts with the lighthouse a bit more, and then I'm just painting with my size 0 brush, even though we're doing sort of larger expanses, because I'm just trying to sort of dart in between the slivers of rock I've painted. But I'm not sort of being really neat about it. I'm just sort of painting as I go. And what's nice is we're painting in a dilute fashion, but because it's a small area we're not flooding the page with loads of colour, so it means that things can bleed and blend and dry quite quickly, when there won't be too much travel of colour. Right, so now I've got a stronger, more concentrated sap green here, and I'm going to use it as my low light. So I'm coming back in, finding areas where I want to just accentuate the green, but also give it a bit more texture by creating a little bit of darkness. So I'm just drawing in colour from the side, which gives us a sense of an uneven hilly landscape. So whenever you think you've sort of painted in a bit of green grass in one colour and think you're finished, think again. Just think about ways in which adding a little bit more colour will just add to the texture and interest of the piece. Okay, that's looking really nice. And now we're going to let the whole thing dry. And whilst we wait for that to dry, we can actually look at our lighthouse. And the beauty of this lighthouse is it's a white and red striped lighthouse. And in just not painting that area and making a sky that's quite colourful, it means that the lighthouse is really going to glow on its own, and we don't need to do a huge amount with it. But there is a lovely striking red stripe across the middle of it. So I'm going to get my Cadmium Red. I have drawn my lighthouse just a bit taller and slimmer than the Portland Bill lighthouse, but I will just do the one stripe. If you want a bit of a hand, you can always get your pencil back in and just draw in the stripe there. So I like to have the control of a smaller brush when painting in something like this. So I've got my size 0 brush. Painting it in with a fairly there's quite a bit of colour there, but there's also a decent amount of water. The page we're painting on is dry, so that means the colour isn't going to travel anywhere that it shouldn't. But it's going on really nice and smoothly. And what I am going to do is take a bit more concentrated colour and just drop it down one side. It's a very subtle addition, but it will make a great help. Okay, now up towards the top of the lighthouse we've got a bit of interest here, a bit of detail. So what I'm going to do is get a bit more of the shadow mixed up. And then a few little windows just with a little dab of the brush. It's really quite dilute. Little window there. And then I'm just sort of painting in a bit of shadow around these drawn lines. I'm not going to outline them literally, I just want to create a bit of interest. Just got to be careful not to disturb that red too much just yet. And then there are a few little windows on the little lighthouse accompanying building. I think this is the visitor centre now. It used to be where the lighthouse keeper would live. And then up at the top we've got a very cool zigzag pane of glass, and I want it to sort of bleed in. There we go. I want it to kind of disappear into the wetness there. And then whilst we wait for that to dry, we can just go back down and finish off the sea. So I'm going to take a bit of Prussian Blue and create a horizon line just there. Clean off my brush and just see, and just painting little brush strokes of colour with just little bits of unpainted space in between. bit of Paynes Grey as well coming into those rocks. I find that helpful if I'm trying to do something up into a straight line, that I just paint a little line, a vertical line along there. Now I'm going to take an even smaller brush and just boil down the detail just a tiny bit more. So I'm going to take a bit more of a concentrated shadow colour. And then one last sweep of shadow. Down the lighthouse there. And then you can let it dry, rub out the pencil and see what we've got left. Okay, so in rubbing out all the pencil off this piece, we're left with something that's really charming in my view. We can really see how wonderful leaving that unpainted space, just it gives it a softness and a lightness. And if you want, you can add a few tiny little bits more detail. But I think the whole point of a piece like this is to celebrate its simplicity and enjoy those lovely little wobbly bits. So yeah, there is a lovely little landscape vignette. If you're feeling a bit overawed by doing a full piece, why not zoom in, focus in on a simple little bit and just enjoy painting that. So thanks so much for watching. I want to say a huge thank you to my patrons for their support, because that support enables us to keep creating videos like these that everyone can enjoy. And if you enjoyed it, then hit the like button and comment below to let me know how you got on. And if you never want to miss another video, just hit the subscribe button, can't talk, hit the subscribe button and that little notification bell. Okay, until next time, bye!